Today, be willing. I want to start with something I usually do, but I'm going to tell you what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. I go to the dictionary sometimes. And sometimes I'm actually looking for where words came from because they help us understand them a little bit more. But today I want to spend a little time on the definition of will and willing because there are a couple different meanings. And I want it to be very clear to us in our awareness, as I share with you today, the distinction between those meanings so that we actually can recognize the type of willingness that we are displaying. So, will, as a noun, I like this actually, the faculty of conscious and deliberate action. That means the ability to be conscious and take deliberate action. The power of control the mind has over its own actions. By the way, this is from a real dictionary, not Wiktionary. So, okay. Second noun definition, the power of choosing one's own actions. And the third, the act or process of asserting one's choice or volition. And the fourth definition of will is a wish or desire. Now, willing, that's the active form of that. But there actually is an active verb and a passive verb for willing. Actively willing is to exercise the will and to decide or to determine. On the passive verb, willing, it means to agree or to go along. So we come to, I will or I'm willing. And all I want us to do today is to get the distinction. When I say I will, is that active? I will. Or is that passive? I will. I'm willing. Like, am I creating, actively willing? Or am I, okay, great, I'll go along. There's nothing wrong, but I want us to know that there's a difference. So that we can choose and be aware sometimes that there's a different choice. Don't we usually think of I'm willing like, sure, I'll go along, I'll do it. I want you to know there's more power available to you. There's a little picture I had. It's kind of like in the old days, the crowd goes along, but the king decides. The crowd is willing, but the king is willing. So, let's shift a little now, because I know we're all willing. Because a lot of times we look at our lives and say, well, how come I'm not more successful or more prosperous? Or how come I don't have what I want to have? Nobody's ever asked that recently, right? James 4, verse 2. What James said there in the Bible, he says, you have not because you ask not. In the New Thought way of saying it, you basically have what you've asked for. Which means whatever you have, some part of you has actually asked for that. If you don't like what you have, ask for something different.
Yes.
Also, the other part of that is that sometimes what we're doing is we're asking ego or personality, and we are not asking spirit. You have not because you ask not from the right source. Now, I also like to play with this because it's such a simple thing, but I believe you have not because you act not.
Amen.
See, because we ask God, because we ask Spirit, because we ask the universe, doesn't mean we're given the stuff, doesn't mean we're given the thing that we've asked for. What we're given is we're given the means to accomplish what we have asked. The means to create. We still have to do it.
Yes.
Remember my quote from Helen Gurley Brown? The only thing that separates successful people from the ones who aren't is the willingness to work very, very hard. Now, I think I told you last week or the week before that 2014, numerologically, is the year of the chariot. So it's one of the most powerful symbols of change. And I'm going to remind you what I said then, because the chariot, while it seems like it's a very active symbol, it has two aspects. It's both inner and outer. The first requirement in a chariot year, if you want to get anything accomplished, is first you have to listen within. Once you are clear of the direction you are going or the goal that you pursue, then you take action. And the energy of this year will provide you all the horsepower you need to get where you have chosen to go. But you've got to know where you're going first. See, this year, picture this, it's a chariot year. So let's go back to the one-passenger chariots, okay? It's you and the chariot. Everybody have a picture of the old-fashioned chariots, you know? And you got a really good horse, or even horses out in front. But it's you and the chariot. So your choice is, are you holding the reins and telling those horses where to go, or are you throwing up your hands in exasperation, cowering in the back, and letting the horses go wherever they want? That's what this year is all about. This year says, hold on to the reins, know where you want to go, and head in that direction. So, now let's go back to willing. Because sometimes we hold back a little bit. So my question is, are you willing to risk? Are you willing to risk declaring what's true for you? Declaring what you really want? Declaring what your ideas or thoughts are? Even though, here's the downside of declaring, okay? Even though you might look stupid if it doesn't come out the way you thought. Or you might be blamed if something goes wrong. Are you willing to declare? The other aspect of the chariot year, the challenge for all of us, and every year, by the way, has its own challenge. So I'm speaking numerologically now, energetically. There's a gift in every year, and that gift is a gift of healing. In order to heal anything, you have to first know what needs healing. So the chariot year is really about healing anything that we have that keeps us from moving ahead. But in order to heal that, we have to first experience what keeps us from moving ahead.
Yes.
So the challenge for all of us in this calendar year is to notice and not allow ourselves to be held back by our fear of failure or our fear of making a mistake. Yeah, notice it. Oops, what happens if I make a mistake? Okay, great. This is a year of change. This is a year where if I take the chance, I have the energy to erase that once and for all from my life forever. It's a pretty good gamble. The other piece of this year is we need to be proactive. We need to take positive steps to avoid any fear of failure and to change any apparently limited circumstances in our life. Which means that instead of being the victim, well, this is going on, I don't know what to do about it, I guess I'll just let it be and make do. It's a year that says if you will confront that, not to change that necessarily, but at least to change your relationship and your response to that, then you will have a totally different experience. Powerful, powerful year. Okay, we've asked. And maybe we've even acted. But we still don't have. All right, so now I go to the second verse in James. James 4:3. The next verse after the one I just shared with you. He said, when you ask and do not receive, he just assumed we're not receiving. He said, when you ask, you do not receive, because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures. Now, this is not just pleasures like spending what I get on feeling good and stuff like that. This is actually asking personally or selfishly, asking for me and mine. It's all about when we ask with the belief in lack or limitation or littleness. The belief that if some get, others don't get. It isn't going to work. We will not receive. On Betty Lou's computer, it really is nice, she's got this little quote from 2 Corinthians. It said, "And God is able to provide you with every blessing in abundance, so that you may always have enough of everything, and may provide in abundance for every good work." You know what the downside of this one is? There's always a downside, isn't there? There isn't any external God out there. Who's this God that's going to give me everything? You will not let yourself have what you desire if it will lead you away from your mission or your purpose. Do you understand? It's sort of a self-limiting, like I don't want to make a mess, I don't want to take my life down the rabbit hole here and never come out again. So on some spiritual level, unconsciously, we do not get what we think we want because it would take us totally away from who we're supposed to be. But there's a God out there saying, you don't get this because you're not good enough. Frankly, it's you saying, I won't let myself have this until I know who I am and act like it. So if you don't have what you think you need, you either don't need it, or somehow you're limiting yourself or sabotaging yourself. So one of the first things I like to do is I like to look at how I have decided that I actually need something. I'll do this, Betty. Ta-da, ta-da, ta-da. We have a little feedback.